No Viagra.
No, just my punching face. No, relax. Don't worry, man. Yes.
You think you're gonna punch me? You won't land.
Okay.
You're too old. Too old.
Yeah, I'm old.
You're old.
But, you know what? I'm old, but I'm more smart. I'm champion for a long time. Remember?
Yes.
Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of the pre-fight analysis breakdown between Anderson Silva and Michael Bisping. First off, I'd like to thank Quest Nutrition for supporting this channel and making these breakdowns possible. And I'd also like to thank you guys for sending in all your questions and comments. Your most popular questions and comments will be answered. Okay, so let's just jump in right away and see what your guys' most popular question was. It was by Kakashi Ball Z. How do volume strikers like Bisping fare against counter punchers like Silva? Well, you know, oftentimes in the octagon we see so many different styles and we see these style clash. But in this particular instance, I don't think it's as much of a factor. The fact that Bisping is the striker, he's a high volume striker, he gets in your face, he doesn't like to back up too much, and he throws a high volume of strikes. And I say it's not that big of a factor because a more important factor, in my opinion, is going to be the skill level. Can Bisping keep up with the skill level of Anderson Silva? If Bisping telegraphs too much, or he gets sloppy, or his timing is not broken up, if his timing is too obvious, you know, it could be a very dangerous thing to go up against Anderson Silva. Now, yes, counterpunchers sometimes beat strikers, high volume strikers, and sometimes you have high volume strikers beating counterpunchers. But in this particular instance, I think it makes for a very good fight. And I'll tell you guys why. Because sometimes the worst thing you can have in a fight is two counterpunchers. They're both waiting for the other to make the first move. And, I mean, if you had, let's say, for instance, a Machida versus an Anderson Silva, you might have a very long 5-round fight with not much things happening. You know, both fighters are waiting for the other to commit because they're looking for that perfect counter strike. Now, with Bisping, if you throw in a Bisping, a high volume puncher, with a counter puncher, you're gonna have an exciting fight. You're probably gonna have an exciting fight because Bisping he doesn't just have high volumes; he has an attitude, and you know he's got a chip on his shoulder, and he moves forward, and he's not scared of anybody. So he'll make Anderson Silva fight, and I think this was a good matchup for that particular reason. We've seen Anderson Silva be hot and cold. You know, sometimes he puts on an amazing performance, knocks a guy out, or really does. You know, he shows us some beautiful skill work in the realm of striking. And sometimes he's very cold. You know, he'll have a guy on the hook and just be nowhere near laying down the strikes that could finish him. And sometimes he plays it overly safe, it seems. So, which Anderson Silva are we going to see? I think we're going to see a risk-taking Anderson Silva because Bisping is going to force him to do that. Now, we all thought that Diaz would do the same thing, and Diaz is one of those guys who forces you into a fight. It didn't happen, as we all know. A lot of you guys were upset, as I understand from your comments. You know, a lot of people did not like the Diaz fight, but I think it was a great matchup. If somebody was going to make Anderson Silva fight, it was Nick Diaz. Now, this is take two. We're going to try it again. UFC's trying it again, I should say. And they're going to put a high-volume striker in, a guy with a tough attitude who's not scared of anybody, who's going to walk Anderson Silva down, and he's going to make Anderson Silva fight. Let's see if Bisping can do better than Diaz. I don't know if he's going to lay down in the octagon like Diaz did and put his hands behind his head and taunt Silva, but that to me was an epic move to try to force Silva to fight. And I don't think Bisping is going to lay down in the octagon like Diaz did, but he's gonna force Anderson to fight. You know, he needs this to be a high volume, high pressure fight. He can't just sit back and let Anderson Silva pick his shots. You know, that's a recipe for disaster. So I know that Bisping knows that. I am assuming Bisping is going to go all out, and I think he's going to force Anderson to fight. You know, that's his ticket to win. That's how I see it. Next one. Frederick Anderson, do you think Anderson Silva looked like his old self in the Diaz fight, and do you think he will look like his old self in this one? How do you see this fight playing out? Well, in the Diaz fight, a lot of people were saying he wasn't himself, but the thing is he's had performances like that in the past. You know, when he fought Damian Maia, when he fought Thales Latis, that was in Montreal. I mean, I was there. A riot almost broke out in the streets because people were so upset with Anderson Silva, and it was kind of the same thing against Damian Maia. He's had performances like that in the past, and then he'll redeem himself with a great performance in later fights. So He's been hot and cold. He's hard to predict. His performances are not always consistent. And we'll just have to tune in and find out. But I really believe Bisping is a great matchup to make him fight. He's one of the guys I think that will draw him out. They'll put the pressure on him and force Anderson Silva to fly, to really work hard. He's not just going to cruise through this fight. Bisping will make him fight. Bisping is willing to go out on his shield, and he's going to force a fight on Anderson. So I really look forward to this fight, mainly because I like the matchup. I like the attitude that Bisping is coming into this fight with, and I think it's going to put on a good show. Next one, Black Hop. I'm glad to see this fight actually happen for Bisping. Did campaign a lot for it to make it happen. Nevertheless, even if I like Bisping very much, what will keep Silva from toying with him, like he did with the likes of Franklin, for example? Well, the Anderson Silva that fought Rich Franklin is not the Anderson Silva, in my opinion, that's going to be fighting Bisping. He's been out for a while. He's had that horrible broken leg. He's been knocked out since then, and I don't think his confidence is as high. I don't think he's as hungry per se, but again, we'll have to wait and see. Bisping, what Bisping's got going for him is that he's fearless, and the last guy to fight Anderson Silva, who was truly fearless in my opinion, and I'll tell you why I'm saying this. Sometimes when you fight a champion and you get in that octagon, you see the challenger kind of like get caught up in the allure or the prestige of the fighter. But there's this invisible allure that he's the champion. He's got this force field around him. Why is he champion? He's decorated with a belt for a reason. He's got that something special. And some people get hypnotized by this. And some fighters, I believe, they get in there, but once they see the champion, once they actually lay their eyes on him and they know they're about to fight him, I think some of them psychologically break. And I hate to name names, but some fighters that are really good at taking the center of the octagon, I've seen in title fights, shy away, back up, not throw their shots, think twice, hesitate. There's a lot of pressure in a world title fight when it's 5 rounds, etc. And this is not a title fight, no. But when Anderson Silva fought Rich Franklin, he didn't believe in Rich Franklin. The first time around, I don't think he believed that Rich Franklin was better than him. He wasn't taken by the prestige that Franklin was the champion. Now, I think he won, and that helped him. But there's another man that did the same thing to Anderson Silva. So Anderson Silva did it to Franklin. He did not have any fear. He didn't show like he had any hesitation, any fear. He looked like he knew exactly what he needed to do to win. But then you look at Chael Sonnen. When Chael Sonnen fought Anderson Silva, he was very defiant of Anderson Silva. He didn't believe in Anderson Silva's mystique whatsoever. He insulted Anderson. He predicted he would beat Anderson. He was very brash. He had no respect for the champion whatsoever. And, we all saw their first fight, how it went down. It went, very heavily in Chael's favor for about 99% of the fight. And he brought in that attitude. He just didn't believe in the Anderson Silva hype. And I don't think Michael Bisping believes in the Anderson Silva hype either. So I think Anderson's going to have a good fight on his hands. I think this fight will be exciting because of Bisping. Because Bisping, he's not going to be scared of the legend that is Anderson Silva. So look for a good fight. Look for a good scrap. I think Bisping's either going to shock the world or go out on his shield. I don't think he'll let this go to decision. I think he'll fight to the end, to the bitter end, and he'll take all the risks needed. This is his big money fight. This is his big chance. So look for this fight to be unusually exciting. Next question. Bile ductable. Okay, that's a weird name. Do either of these fighters have a realistic shot at the middleweight title? Luke Rockhold easily defeated Bisping already, and Silva lost his last two title fights in dramatic fashion. Could Bisping or Silva ever beat Rockhold, Weidman, Jacare, or Romero? I think Anderson beats Bisping by submission, by the way. Well, I don't know if Anderson wins by submission. He has a good triangle off his back. He's won several times by triangle. But I think if he does submit Bisping, he'll have to knock Bisping down or have him on the hook seriously before he puts on a submission. Bisping's proved to be hard to tap out in the past. I know he lost to a one-arm guillotine against Rockhold, but Rockhold's jiu-jitsu is really exceptional. It's something special. And no, I don't think either one of these fighters can beat Rockhold right now. I'd have to see more from these two fighters before I say that. And but again, it's Anderson Silva. You know, he could have a second win, a third win in him. Who knows? Well, time will tell. But again, I don't want to count him out, but I see it as unlikely. I do agree with you. I see it as unlikely that he'll ever beat a Weidman or a Rockhold. Next question. Alistar. Both of these fighters have major weaknesses. Silva obviously has his shin. Bisping has problems with his eye, although his camp isn't saying anything. The fact that Silva is now 40 may play into his training, but he still seems he still seems as good as always. Bisping is rather hungry, and heart can make or break a fight. Don't know, can't call it. Well, let me just lower the light here. Okay, well, I'll tell you one thing. Yes, Bisping has a bad shin, and that's gonna definitely haunt him for the rest of his career. I think he's gonna think twice before he starts kicking hard. And if Bisping was really prepared for this fight, he will be checking kicks, and that could play a huge factor in backing Anderson Silva up and cutting off the ring for Bisping and getting this fight where Bisping needs it to be. You know, he needs it to be close, high volume, high pressure. He needs it to make this a cardio fight. Bisping's always showed he has incredible cardio. And if he blocks a few kicks with his shin, if it goes shin to shin, I could see Anderson backing up. Now Diaz doesn't block a lot of kicks, you know, and I think that was a problem in terms of cutting Anderson Silva off. But Bisping, I think, has it in him to block a few kicks, bone to bone, shin to shin. And yes, that could be a serious problem for Anderson Silva. I think that break is still in the back of his mind. That kind of stuff doesn't go away, at least not for a while. The fact that Anderson's 40, yeah, that could be a factor, but I think he's a healthy and very vibrant 40-year-old. I've seen him hitting pads, and I think he still looks good. He has that pop. I don't know how much of an issue that will be. Could be a cardio issue in the later rounds, but again, that's one of those we'll have to wait and see. Heart can make or break a fight, absolutely. And if there's a guy with enough heart to walk down Anderson Silva, I think it's going to be Bisping. So good call on this one, Chris. I like where your head is at. Next question. The Strong 1997. Why is Anderson Silva still fighting? Guys, this was a very upvoted question from you guys. Question from you guys. Why is Anderson still fighting? Well, one, it's probably the only thing he likes to do. I mean, he's a fighter. And why shouldn't he fight? Even if he's not going to be a world champion anymore, if he enjoys it, it keeps him young, keeps him healthy, and he's making big bucks doing it. Why shouldn't he fight? Just because you can't be world champion, just because you can't be knocking guys out, just because people, I should say, think you can't be world champion. I'm sure he still believes he can be world champion, and he may live to prove his doubters wrong. A lot of people thought Muhammad Ali couldn't win a second world title. A lot of people doubted many fighters across fighting history, and they were proven wrong. So I'm not going to sit here and say he can never be a world champion, but I'm sure in his heart of hearts he believes he can still be a world champion. He can get that title one more time. And who knows? Time will tell. So we'll have to see after his fight in England, and I think we'll have a better idea of whether it's even possible, whether it's in the realm of possibility that he can actually fight again for a world title. Next question. Jordan Satterley. If Silva was your fighter, would you have tried to convince him to retire by now? Well, not really. I'll tell you why. I like to, if I have a fighter who's a blood and guts fighter, if I have a fighter who's been knocked out too many times, and after his knockouts I start to see that there's a change in his behavior, I see that he's got tics, or, you know, of course fighters all get sent to the doctors. If I talk to his doctor and he tells me, you know what, I really think there's a health issue, I would tell him to stop. That's the only time I think I would tell a fighter to stop. Maybe there's a few other scenarios, but that would be my number one reason to tell a fighter to stop. If I think that his health is on the line, I will tell him to stop. His mental health, his physical health. But Anderson Silva seems fine. You know, he had a horrific break in the octagon, but I like what he's doing. He's getting back on the horse. He's facing his fears. He's moving forward. And no, I don't think he's washed up or finished. I think he had one fight that fans didn't like in Diaz. He had two bad losses, but people have come back from more, and people have to cultivate this attitude that when you're down, you're not out. You're not out till you're buried in the ground. So for me, I like his attitude. I like his attitude that he's facing his fears. He's getting back on the horse. He's getting back in there. That takes a lot of guts. I have a lot of admiration for his ability and desire to get back in competition. So for me, I see it as a positive thing. I would not tell him to retire unless I thought his health was on the line. So that's my answer to you. Next one. Vinod Reddy. I think Bisping has a chance here. If the fight goes to later rounds and he is counter fighting, but since it's his hometown, he might try being aggressive and make mistakes. Agree? I don't think he's gonna counter punch Anderson Silva too much. Anderson Silva is more of the counter puncher, and Anderson Silva also has incredible setups. Bisping is not really a counter puncher. He's more of a high volume, in your face, walk you down. He's good at slipping. He's good at some counters. Yes, I don't want to say he doesn't counter at all, but he's more of a 1-1-1. He's more of a 1-1-2 high kick type guy, and he likes his straight punches. He throws a variety of things, but nothing Anderson hasn't seen. If there's going to be a lot of counters, it's going to come from Anderson's side, I believe. I think Bisping's card is mostly walk Anderson down, cut off the cage, make it a high-pressure fight, break Anderson down, fatigue him, wear him out, so that he can't sit back and pick his shots. If Anderson Silva doesn't have any pressure on him and he's sitting back picking shots, we've seen him win fights quite easily that way. So Bisping's got to get in his face, not wait too long to counterpunch. So that's my opinion on that. Next one here, Screen Playa. The knee-jerk reaction is to say that this might have been a great scrap had it happened 5 years ago, but I wonder if the questions that now exist regarding Silva, his age, and his drug use actually serve to make this a more marketable fight now. What do you think? Well, I think 5 years ago, Anderson had really big names to fight. Bisping was still in the top 10, but he wasn't as hot as the other opponents that Anderson was fighting. So now that Anderson's name is cooled down a bit, and Bisping's heating up a little bit. Maybe in the media he's talking a lot of crap here. He's been campaigning for this fight. I think this is the right time. 5 years ago, I think a lot of people would have wanted to see Anderson fight other fighters that he fought. I think he was well matched. I think he fought the biggest names at that time. Now's Bisping's chance to prove he was overlooked. He thinks he was overlooked. Now's the time to prove it. We'll have to wait to see what happens this weekend. Next question. Alejandro Morcutio. Do you think Silva could start at his age for a next run at the title? I think it's possible, guys. Other fighters have done it. Don't forget George Foreman. Don't forget Bernard Hopkins. There are a lot of great fighters who fought in their 40s, way past 40 even. Bernard Hopkins defended a title, or won a title, I think it was, at 51. I think he defended his title at 51. So he won a title, I think, at 48, and then defended a title again at 51. Something like that, something along those lines. Royce Gracie just won by KO. He just had his first recorded TKO, and he was 49 or 50, this past weekend. So anything is possible. You guys are a little bit too negative, in my opinion. Everybody keeps talking to me about his age. Age is not that big of a factor when it comes to somebody who takes care of himself. If you age like most people age, 40 years old. If you age like an athlete who takes care of his body and his conditioning and his range of motion and all these important attributes that you can maintain, you don't age the same way. The way an average Joe might be in his 20s, you'll have a guy like Anderson in his 40s. I don't think Anderson is your typical 40-year-old. So keep that in mind. He's somebody who's been training for years, building his body for years and years. So we've seen super athletes win at the age of 40. I know guys who are in their 50s. I wrestle with Doug Yates. He's a 5-time Olympian. He still throws 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds all over the place in the gym. He's a monster of a man. He trains all the time. He's not easily pinned or taken down because he's older. He has that knowledge. He has that experience. So I think you guys are heavily underestimating the importance of, one, taking care of your body, and two, the experience he has. So yes, he may be older, but you guys are putting too much emphasis on age. So that is my answer to you, my friend. Next one here. Josh Calms. If Anderson is able to win and win decisively, what do you see next for him? Another fight, title shot, bad idea, or retirement? Title shot, I don't think so. To be honest with you, and unless he went with an unbelievable, incredible KO. I think the drama going on in the middleweight division right now is heavy. I think people want to see Rockhold and Weidman. I think people want to see what's happening with Romero and his current drug test. And of course, we have Jacare, we have Vitor. I think those guys are going to make for the next few title fights. And I think Weidman and Rockhold are going to get the rematch. It was an exciting fight. Weidman was such a great champion. I think there's still a long line for either one of these fighters. I don't think they jump the line and get a title shot after this. But again, you never know. Stranger things have happened. Next one here. Well, that was weird. Hey Firas, before seeing this fight, do you think either of these men are still relevant in the middleweight division? Thanks. Yes, I think both these men are still relevant in the middleweight division. They're not super hot right now, that's definitely for sure. But a big win, a seesaw battle, epic battle, an epic war, showing a lot of heart, showing a lot of skill could tip that, could change that. But for now, no, they're definitely not the hottest name in the middleweight division. Next question. Titan MMA, what effect, if any, do you believe Silva's horrific leg break had on his fight style? Do you feel there was a hesitance shown by Silva versus Diaz? Well, Silva's been hot and cold in the past before, so I don't want to say there was a hesitance. There was, I think he was playing it safe. Again, that horrific leg break, it was in his mind, it was in his head. And plus, he had Diaz heckling him, walking him down, taunting him, lying down in the octagon, telling him to fight me, telling him, come on. And there was so many mind games. There was so many... it was just heavy duty mind play in there, So, yeah, I think that played. I think it overloaded him a bit. He hadn't fought in a long time. I heard his leg break is, he said it was probably his worst experience in his life. Don't quote me on that. He said something along those lines. I remember that he never wanted to experience that again. I don't blame him at all. And then again, you fighting Diaz, the guy who's like the meanest, most aggressive talker. Yes, I definitely think that played in his head. And Bisping's right there. Getting in his head, getting in his face. So, yes, I do see these things getting in his head. Definitely possible. Very high possibility. Next one, Farhad Nouri. Do you see either fighter taking the fight to the ground? If so, who has the advantage? I don't see either fighter taking this fight to the ground. Bisping is more hard to sub. He's more of an MMA type fighter. If he gets on top, he'll ground and pound. Anderson Silva actually has got a phenomenal ground and pound. He's very accurate with his ground and pound. If the fight does go to the ground, I think it'll be a knockdown. I think it'll be somebody catching a kick type thing, but I don't think these fighters are gonna wrestle. I don't think they are. I think they're gonna knock each other down or catch kicks and kind of foot sweep, tie sweep kind of takedowns. It won't be a wrestling type takedown. I don't really see somebody taking a double leg shot. Maybe from Bisping's side. Bisping, he's done double legs in the past. He's attempted them. So, but I don't think so. I think it's gonna be a gunfight. So that's what I think is gonna happen. Next question. Lucas Newman, how will Anderson's chin hold up? I think Anderson has a good chin. I know he got knocked out by Weidman, but Weidman hits really hard, and Anderson had his hands down. Anderson didn't see that shot coming, and Anderson was like asking for it. He was showboating. He wasn't paying attention, and he got clipped. And he got clipped by a guy who was accurate, who hit him right on the button, who hit him with a lot of power. Weidman hits hard. You shouldn't joke around when you're fighting Weidman. And I think he's learned his lesson. When a guy learns his lesson, usually he's harder to knock out the next time around. So I don't think his chin is going to be a problem. I think his chin should hold up. It should be like we've seen him before the Chris Weidman fight. I think it should be along those lines. Again, never know what's going to happen. Next one, YouTube's World. Hi Firas, want to say thank you for turning my eye to Inside Quest. It is a great channel and welcome, and would recommend to anyone. My question is, if Bisping wins, does that put him in line for a title shot? And the same with the Spider. If he wins, where does that put him in the grand scheme of the middleweight division? Hope you get a chance to read this and include it in your video. And big up all the way from Scotland. May you inspiration. Well, thank you very much, YouTube World. I don't think that puts them in any way, shape, or form for a title shot. There's too much drama going on right now in middleweight. There's too many hot names ahead of them. So they'd have to win a couple more fights, definitely. Okay, Issa de Camp, what do you think about Anderson taking steroids? And how will this affect him being off it? Well, if you take steroids and you train on steroids and then you get off it, it's bad. It's a bad experience from what I understand. I don't take steroids. I don't recommend steroids. I don't think I have any guys taking steroids. If there are, I don't know about it. I really doubt any one of the guys I train does steroids. And I think there's a psychological element. If you're taking steroids, you're recovering faster, you're getting stronger, you feel superhuman, and then all of a sudden you're going in a fight and that superhuman feeling is stripped from you. So if Anderson Silva has a horrible night, I mean, if he looks superhuman, if he looks like a regular Joe in this fight, that's going to be strong evidence, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. I'm no expert on the subject. It's just my opinion. It's going to be strong evidence that he was on steroids, for a long time in his career. And excuse me, I think a lot of you are going to be saying, "Oh, he's 40." And this. Many men have fought at the age of 40. 40 is not old, in my opinion, when you're a skill fighter. It's old when you're a bruiser, when you're a blood and guts fighter, and you've been through many wars, and you've been knocked out many times in your career, and you've been busted up. Yes, 40 can be old, but Anderson is he's like a GSP. He trains all year round. He takes care of his body. He fights in a way that's intelligent. He doesn't get hit too much. All fighters go through wars here and there, but of course he's been hit. All fighters have been hit, but for the amount of fights that he's had, for the amount of time he's spent in the octagon, he hasn't been hit much, relatively speaking. Relatively speaking, he's an intelligent guy who plays a smart game, and I don't think he's as old as people think. Now, if he has a stellar night and he's been thoroughly tested, that'll be evidence that he wasn't on steroids maybe for all his fights. But then again, the other side of the story is that when you're on steroids, they say, and this is what I've been told by a gentleman who's an expert in this field, a friend of mine who's a doctor and knows a lot about these things. He trains he treats a lot of athletes, and he says when you take steroids, you have a benefit for life, so to speak, because all the years of extra training, all the years of cultivating your skill, etc., all the years of recovering well, you spent so many more hours than you would have because of your recovery, and it changes your body for life. So again, I'm not an expert in this. This is what I've been told. I think there's two ways. I think if you're on steroids, there could be a psychological crutch, and then those steroids are taken away from you, so you can have a meltdown. You're not as strong. You don't recover as fast. You start having all these doubts. But the other effect is that you've been training on them for so long. You've gotten in a lot of great training. You've wrestled for more years than or more rounds on the years that you were on the steroids. You've done more work, so you've acquired more experience. So there's pros and cons, so let's wait and see. And I think if Anderson has a bad night, if he looks really, really bad, it'll have to do more with being clean than it will have to do with his age or whatnot. So that's just my opinion. I don't think 40 is that old. I'm 36. I spar. I feel the same as I always felt. But again, I don't have fights like Anderson. I didn't take shots like Anderson has. I think that also plays a factor. Next question. Kakoi Pakan. Bisping's pillow fist versus Silva's cracked chin. As also, is there a possibility of fight go roll to ground? And who would initiate it first? Sorry for bad English. Okay, so I think what he's saying is there a possibility for this fight to go on the ground? Okay, that's what he's saying. Pillow fist versus Silva's cracked chin. Well, I wouldn't walk up to Bisping and tell him he's got pillow fists. I wouldn't tell him that. He's a high volume puncher. He's a busy guy. He's knocked people out in the past. He can put one on Anderson's chin. It's not without the realm of possibility. Okay, Silva's cracked chin, guys. He's been knocked out once. I think I can only remember him being knocked out once. He's been knocked out more than once. He's been knocked down with Chael. I remember that. I can't remember him being knocked out cold by anybody else. It might have happened. I might be forgetting. You guys, I'm sure, will remind me. Yes, he got knocked out by Whiteman. Think of how many punches he's evaded in his career. Sooner or later, one will land right on the money, on the button. And I'm not trying to say Whiteman got lucky. It was just a young, hungry guy with very good, accurate hands who put one on his chin. But it happens in fighting. It happens. You live by the gun, you will die by the gun. If you roll that dice long enough, guys, you will get clipped. Okay, mark my words. If you roll the dice long enough, you will get clipped. I don't care if you're Rigondeaux. I don't care if you're Muhammad Ali. I don't care if you're Mayweather. If Mayweather keeps rolling that dice, it's a matter of time before he gets clipped. He hasn't got clipped in his career, but what I'm saying is intelligent fighters leave no one to call it quits. Maybe Anderson's playing it too long in the game and he's going to get clipped. Who knows? Chaos theory tells us that nothing is predictable. The world is more complicated than we know. There's too many factors to equate. We cannot safely equate. All we can do is give probabilities. Okay, and I'm going to give you guys my probability. We're 29 minutes in. I forgot to do it earlier. I'm giving this fight, I would say, 75-35 in the favor of Anderson Silva. Why? I think his footwork and his accuracy will play a big role. I think he will win. But again, there are so many factors to juggle. He's off PEDs. He hasn't fought in a long time. Bisping's relentless. Bisping can take a shot. Who knows? But again, my forecast for this fight, I'll give it 75-35 in the favor of Anderson Silva. That's how I see it. And I think it's going to go down that way. Next one. Matt Aylesworth. Do you think Anderson Silva still has it? His comeback against Diaz was horrendous. Follow that up with being popped for PEDs. Do you think his mind will still be scattered, or has he been able to refocus himself? What will Bisping need to shut him down? It looks like the verbal warfare may already be getting to Anderson. I think it is. You know, when Bisping was telling him, you know, no Viagra and this and that, and Anderson was like, I'll punch you in the face. You know, he didn't say I'll punch you in the face. He said, no Viagra, just my fist in your face. You know, I thought that was out of character for Anderson. You know, I thought that was Bisping getting under his skin. Bisping got in his face, and that's a plus for Bisping, because if Bisping gets him angry and gets him kind of like in that fight mind frame, not that sit back and be tactical mind frame. If Bisping gets under his skin and Silva throws caution to the wind, and he goes toe to toe with Bisping and he throws down with Bisping, that's a very wise choice. You know, I think Chael Sonnen proved that. Chael Sonnen really got under Anderson Silva's skin, and what happened in that fight? He landed a big left. He was all over Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva just wasn't there. You know, he wasn't there till the very end of that fight. So I know, of course, Chael had what I believe it was that fight. He popped for PEDs. I think he was 16-1, and he claimed that was a light day for him. It was years ago. I don't remember exactly, but I remember him saying something along those lines that 16-1, I'm only 16-1. You guys caught me on a low day. And then when he fought him in the rematch, when Chael fought Anderson in the rematch, you all remember, it didn't go out Chael's way whatsoever. You know, of course, round one he mounted him, but he couldn't do anything. He didn't do the least bit of harm to Anderson. And I think he was only allowed 6-1. So I think that's the difference between 16+1 and 6-1. I think you guys can see the difference in what these PEDs can do in terms of performance. In the first fight, he was all over Anderson, was toying with Anderson. Let's be honest, you know, he was really crushing Anderson, standing on the ground everywhere. And in the second fight, he could barely last a round and a half. So PEDs play a big role. Bisping's under his skin. Bisping's a wise man to get under his skin. If he gets under his skin enough, Anderson will start fist fighting. He'll start really throwing down and could do good for Bisping's game plan. Next one here, Noah Zorro. Nice name. Hi Firas, thanks for doing these. I really enjoy them. My question is, do you think Anderson can finish Bisping, and how do you think he will fare in the later rounds? Anderson is 40, so I don't know if he can compete at this level anymore. What do you think? You guys have something against 40-year-olds. Again, I don't think that's much of a difference. I think the style of fighting is going to be the difference. If Anderson gets tired, it's because Bisping is successfully closing the distance and forcing Anderson to fight. Now, not many guys have been able to do this. And I'll tell you one thing about Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman is an incredible pressure fighter. Watch his fight with Lyoto Machida. Lyoto Machida is a very hard guy to pressure. And he did a great job, especially in the first 3 rounds, of pressuring him when Machida was still very, very explosive. So, you know, if Bisping can do what Weidman did, you know, maybe Bisping doesn't have the wrestling to get Anderson to the ground. That's was definitely a plus for Chris to have. But if Bisping can do what Anderson did and keep in the face of Anderson and just stay in his face and be brave enough not to be scared and back up, you know, and I think he is. I think he's very brave. I think he's very gutsy. I don't think he's going to be intimidated by Anderson in the least bit. And, you know, just because you made me think of that, I'm going to change my prediction. I'm going to change my forecast, I should say, to 70-30. And I know that doesn't make that much of a big difference, but I'm going to go 70-30 in favor of Anderson Silva. I think Bisping has a chance to break him because of his tough attitude and his fearlessness. And I think that should be the final note, guys. I'm giving you my final forecast for this fight. I think the odds would be fair to say 70-30, and I'm giving 70 to Anderson because of his experience level and his pristine striking technique. And I think his technique is cleaner, and I think it's going to be a lot of striking in this fight. Guys, as always, thank you for your comments and questions. I appreciate it. Make sure to like, share, and comment this video, and I will see you all in the next episode. Thank you, and enjoy the fights.